And Jonathan Fowler joins me now from Amman. He's with the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees. Jonathan, appreciate your time. This polio vaccination campaign, so important right now. The first doses being administered, and it does seem that it has been successful, or as successful as it can be under these conditions.
Absolutely. I mean, the latest data that we have is that over the first 3 days of the campaign, which started in the middle areas of Gaza on Sunday, we've managed to reach around 187,000 children. Now, that's absolutely critical because overall we're seeking to reach more than 600,000 children with vaccinations. And we need to get a 90% vaccination rate in order to stem this disease.
That is quite a task. 600,000 children under the age of 5, I think, or at least very young children. And it, of course, needs 2 doses. You've started in the central parts of Gaza. The south and the north obviously now desperately need to be inoculated as well. How is your agency, as well as other UN agencies, how are you going to navigate that, especially when Northern Gaza is under assault?
Well, clearly, I mean, the next step is to try to reach children in the south of the Gaza Strip. But I mean, what's absolutely critical here is that what we call temporary area pauses. So in other words, cessations of conflict in areas where we're seeking to do vaccinations, that those need to hold. So far, they've held pretty well. This is why the campaign has been such a success. But these sort of pockets of ceasefire, they need to hold solidly while this campaign is ongoing. And of course, as the UN Secretary General has underlined, and you mentioned this in the previous reports, the polio pauses are a sign that this can be done. And what the children of Gaza and the rest of the people of Gaza need now is a ceasefire.
That's exactly what they need. You're so right. And they're so desperate for one to take place, not just for the vaccination campaign, but of course for humanitarian aid to come in. Now that they've seen the success of these short humanitarian pauses for the polio vaccination, is it possible that there could be more for some humanitarian aid to be administered to people?
Well, we have to hope so. Of course, it's impossible to say what may happen. I mean, hope is in very short supply, but this is a ray of hope. I can't speculate on what may happen in the coming days or weeks. But what we do know is that the polio vaccination campaign is essential, but it's just one part of the wider story, as you've rightly flagged. We need to be able to get more aid into the Gaza Strip. We need to be able to improve living conditions across the Gaza Strip. I mean, the children that we're vaccinating are returning to shelters. They're returning to tented camps, which are stuck between mountains of garbage and lakes of sewage, which means that the risk of other diseases, it remains very, very high. The risk of unexploded ordnance, all of these things are extremely dangerous for the population. This is why we have to hope that this polio campaign is a precursor to something much bigger in terms of humanitarian pauses and a ceasefire. But this is where we need things to go.
Jonathan, just lastly, when it comes to possible more diseases springing up, the UN's also reporting that they had the first rainfall of the season experienced over the past weekend. People there working on the ground are saying that over 1/3 of Gaza's population lives in flood-prone areas. Most don't have access to water, to sanitation. What are some of the other diseases that aid workers are concerned about that may arise in the Gaza Strip?
I mean, there's a whole range of bacterial infections that can be spurred, unfortunately, by dirty water. And I mean, this isn't just a problem of flooding, of course. The sewage system in Gaza has collapsed since very, very early in the war. Damage to facilities, but also, the damage to pumping stations, the lack of fuel to fuel pumping stations, all these kind of things. But I mean, beyond bacterial infections, which including, diarrhea and so on, which is particularly deadly for young children. We've also seen acute respiratory illnesses flourishing because of the fact that people are in close proximity. I mean, you have huge numbers of people per square kilometre, and this means that it's easy for diseases to rage and to spread.
Jonathan Fowler, really appreciate you taking out the time to speak to us. Thanks so much for your insight.
Thank you.